All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Forestieri, and I am one of the managers on the EMFAC team. We would like to welcome you to the EMFAC 2025 final fourth public workshop. Before getting into today's presentation, Dr. Michael Benjamin, who is the Chief of the Air Quality Planning and Science Division at CARB, will provide some introductory remarks.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Benjamin, and as Sarah said, I'm Chief of the Air Quality Planning and Science Division at the California Air Resources Board. I oversee development of California's air quality plans and related technical tools, including the EMFAC model. The EMFAC model is an important tool not just for state implementation plan development, but also for developing regulations and transportation plans. Today's workshop is the culmination of 4 years of public process, starting with the user survey that we did with many of you back in 2021. I'd like to thank all of you, especially those representatives from metropolitan planning organizations, for participating in the 3 public workshops and 3 rounds of EMFAC model pre-release testing we've done over the past 4 years. Today's workshop, for the first time, will share the cumulative emissions impact of 2 things, the model updates and the benefits of regulations. We request your feedback on the proposed model update that we're going to be describing today by this Friday, May 2nd, so that we can finalize and release the model to the public in the next several weeks. So with that, I will now turn it over to Jiniok Keo to continue with the workshop. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Jiniok Keo, one of the staff in the EMFAC team. Let's get started. The next slide, please. So before we begin, I want to cover a few important details regarding today's workshop. So first, for those who prefer to join using your telephone, you can call in using the number 888-363-4734. Please use the access code shown on the slide, 350021 when prompted. Please note that this workshop is being recorded. After the workshop, the recording will be made available on CARB's on-road conferences and workshops webpage. This will provide an opportunity for you to review the material at your convenience, and you can also share it with those who may not be able to attend today. The slides that we are presenting today is already available on the website. One of my colleagues will provide a link to the slide on the chat now. Yeah, next slide, please. This slide outlines the steps we have taken to ensure that our plans and updates are transparently communicated to all stakeholders and users of EMFAC. In the summer of 2021, we began by conducting a user survey to gather feedback from our stakeholders on the current version of EMFAC and to solicit suggestions for improvements or additions for the next version. Our first public workshop took place in October 2022, where we discussed planned updates and new regulations to be incorporated into the updated EMFAC. In January 2024, we hosted the second public workshop, focusing on methodological updates and sharing preliminary results. In October last year, we hosted the third workshop to present further updates beyond what was covered in the second workshop. Today, we are hosting the final workshop to present additional updates made so far, and most importantly, the overall updates to the emissions inventory generated by the final version of the new EMFAC. Next slide. Throughout the development process, we shared 3 draft versions with a select group of EMFAC users. This group primarily included people from CARV, air districts, metropolitan planning organizations, state agencies, and consulting firms. The alpha version was released in August last year, focusing on model functionality and updates presented mostly during our second workshop. The beta version was released in November last year. While still a development version, it incorporated most of the planned updates. Beta version, the testers were also provided access to a preview of emission results through an updated EMFAC web platform. About 2 weeks ago, we distributed another one, a release candidate version, to our testers, allowing stakeholders to evaluate a near final version of the model. We appreciate the bug reports and feedback provided by our testers. If you're interested in joining the EMFAC testing group, please let us know anytime. I'd like to note that we are still accepting feedback on the release candidate version for the next few days more. Next slide, please. Here's today's agenda. I'll begin by providing an overview of EMFAC. Next, my colleague Stephen will share updates on light-duty speed correction factors. Following that, Vahid and Sonika will present the comprehensive updates made in EMFAC 2025. Then I'll return to briefly discuss our next steps. Finally, we'll conclude with a dedicated Q&A session. Next slide, please. Next. So let me briefly provide an overview of EMFAC. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. EMFAC is California's state-of-the-art emissions inventory model for on-road mobile sources, that is, all the motor vehicles operating on the road in California. EMFAC generates emissions inventories that are foundational to CARV efforts to control greenhouse gases, criteria pollutants, and air toxics. They support critical programs like the scoping plan, state implementation plans, and more. We continue to gather and utilize all available information to ensure EMFAC remain as robust and accurate as possible. EMFAC is a software package that consolidates these data gathering and modeling efforts into a single powerful tool. Next slide. Each version of the EMFAC model is submitted to US EPA for approval, and it is authorized for use in developing and supporting CARB-specific planning efforts. EMFAC represents the over 3 decades of development, incorporating rigorous data collection and continuous refinement of methodologies to maintain CARB's state-of-the-art approach to modeling emissions, mobile source emissions modeling. The model combines extensive laboratory and on-road emission testing, detailed analysis of vehicle populations and activity patterns, and more recently, the integration of the emerging big data sources. It includes the latest regulations from both California and the federal government. CARB staff works collaboratively with state agencies, air districts, metropolitan planning organizations, and community members, also US EPA and researchers to continue to refine and enhance EMFAC. Next slide, please. I'd like to provide a summary of the EMFAC model releases over the past decade. The EMFAC model is typically updated every 3 to 4 years, with each version featuring significant advancements that go beyond routine data updates. This slide highlights the key improvement from recent iterations. EMFAC 2014 marked a major milestone as it transitioned from the legacy Fortran architecture to a modern software framework built using Python and MySQL. EMFAC 2017 built upon the updated architecture of EMFAC 2014, introducing new components and further enhancements. It also incorporated critical regulations that were in effect as of December 2017, such as the Phase 2 greenhouse gas standards. EMFAC 2021 was included substantial improvements like previous versions. Notably, it introduced a new user-friendly web platform, bringing all EMFAC functionalities online. This platform allows users to access emissions result, generate emission rates using custom meteorological inputs, and create emissions inventory using custom activity information, all directly on the web. For the upcoming EMFAC 2025, we have continued to integrate the latest vehicle activity analysis and technology assessments to ensure a comprehensive and robust model. Yeah, and the release of EMFAC 2025 is planned for next month in May, likely before mid-May. Over the next few slides, I'd like to present major updates and enhancements introduced in EMFAC 2025. Next slide. Here I'm providing a very high-level overview. For more detailed information, please refer to the slides from our previous workshops, which are available on the mobile source emissions inventory page of the CARB website. We will publish a technical documentation of EMFAC 2025 that'll describe all the updates in detail, but it'll become ready in the summer this year. First, we introduced we incorporated the latest in-use testing data for both light duty and heavy duty vehicles, utilizing results from chassis dynamometer test and also portable emission measurement system, or so-called PEMS test. Second, we observed that older vehicles, despite representing a relatively small population, contribute a substantial fraction of emissions. To address this, we developed a method to account for emissions from light-duty vehicles aged 45 years or older. Finally, we often find that vehicles are driven at speeds exceeding legal limits. In response, we conducted extensive emission testing and data analysis to improve our estimates of vehicle mile travel and emissions at speeds above 70 miles per hour. Next slide. We also enhanced our modeling of vehicle populations and vehicle activity through a contract with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. We improved the granularity of zero-emission vehicle adoption, we used to model at the state level, but with EMFAC 2025, we are providing the estimate at the county level. The figure on the left-hand side illustrates our result, showing how the fraction of ZEV, the zero-emission vehicles, is projected to evolve from 2013 to 2035. Additionally, in collaboration with Professor Mark Jacobson at UC San Diego, we incorporated a new rigorous method for forecasting new light-duty vehicle sales. This approach reflects the latest socioeconomic information, demographics, and regulatory environments. Lastly, by utilizing a big data source on heavy-duty truck activity, we developed a more realistic and detailed distribution of heavy-duty truck operations. Next slide. Each new EMFAC release incorporates all major regulations adopted as of its release date. For light-duty sector, for EMFAC 2025, CARB's landmark Advanced Clean Cars 2 program is implemented. This program, starting in 2026, introduces strengthened low-emission vehicle regulations to further reduce emissions from combustion vehicles, and it also sets zero-emission vehicle sales requirement, achieving 100% zero-emission sales by 2035. Additionally, a federal regulation adopted in early 2024 establishes updated greenhouse gas and criteria pollutant standards for light and medium duty vehicles, covering model years from 2027 through 2032. Next slide. This slide outlines the heavy-duty regulations incorporated in EMFAC 2025. The Clean Truck Check Program, also known as HDINM program, ensures that the vehicles, the emission control system work properly. The Federal Clean Trucks Plan establishes stricter emission standards for criteria pollutants from heavy-duty vehicles and engines sold outside of California, starting with model year 2027. The Federal Heavy-Duty Phase 3 greenhouse gas rule increases the stringency of greenhouse gas standards for heavy-duty vehicles sold outside of California, starting with model year 2027. For advanced clean fleets, CARB withdrew a withdrawal waiver request, and we excluded high priority fleets and drayage trucks, but we are retaining the state and local government fleet requirements in the advanced clean fleets. Lastly, under the voluntary manufacturer commitments in the Clean Truck Partnership, EMFAC 2025 models 100% heavy-duty zero-emission sales in California starting in 2036. Okay, next. That concludes my overview of EMFAC 2025. Now, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Stephen, who will discuss an update on light-duty speed correction factors before we dive into the overall updates of EMFAC 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Jin-Yup. Next slide. Good afternoon. I will present our analysis on light-duty speed correction factors that may be considered in updating our emissions inventory model, EMFAC 2025. I will provide background about EMFAC's speed correction factors, walk through the new test data, analysis steps and results, then show what the statewide emissions impact would be if the updated speed correction factors were implemented in the model. Next slide. Previously, EMFAC's speed correction factors are based on unified correction cycles developed over 20 years ago for EMFAC 2000. 12 correction cycles were created to collect emissions data at different speeds 5 miles per hour apart. The mid-range cycles between 15 to 45 miles per hour were developed based on test data from over 130 vehicles. The lower and higher cycles were developed using data from 10 test vehicles. Since then, new dynamometer test cycles have been designed and used in our light-duty test programs. These are the arterial and freeway driving cycles and the high-speed cycles. More details on the arterial and freeway cycles will be shown here in the upcoming slides. For the high-speed cycles above 70 miles per hour, we have a separate test project that started last year and will show preliminary data from 7 test vehicles. Most of the test data are not yet reflected in EMFAC. However, an earlier analysis of the data was conducted for EMFAC 2017, and at that time, only the CO2 speed correction factors were updated due to a strong correlation across all vehicle tech groups. Next slide. We started implementing the 4 arterial and 7 freeway driving cycles in CARB's light-duty surveillance test plan in calendar year 2012. The arterial cycles represent surface street and arterial driving for speeds averaging between 7 and 55 miles per hour, while the freeway cycles represent average driving conditions between 15 to 73 miles per hour. Next slide. This slide shows the 2 surveillance programs and the test vehicles that provided the arterial and freeway cycles data for this analysis. Test data from 94 vehicles were collected in light-duty surveillance 19 at CARB's Hagen-Smith laboratory in El Monte between 2012 and 2017. Their range of tech groups are shown here, which includes pre-LEV vehicles, LEV 1, and LEV 2 vehicles. We had 1 SULEV vehicle, which was grouped with LEV 2. Light-duty surveillance program 21 is currently being conducted at our Riverside laboratory, and at this time provides data from 3 test vehicles for this analysis. 2 LEV 2 SULEV vehicles and 1 LEV 3 SULEV 30 vehicle, which we can group with LEV 2 SULEV. Next slide. For our analysis, we are grouping the test data from the 97 test vehicles into 3 groups to provide an adequate sample size per group. The analysis group for pre-LEVs has 17 vehicles, the LEV 1 group has 42 vehicles, and the LEV 2, LEV 3 group has 38 vehicles. For EMFAC 2025, this update applies to catalyst vehicles, not for vehicles without catalyst. Next slide. For the pre-LEV tech group, the analysis of each arterial and freeway cycle produced the following speed correction factor trend lines shown here for HC, CO, and NOx. The orange lines show the updated speed correction factors for EMFAC 2025 compared to the green lines showing the speed correction factors in the current model EMFAC 2021. Next slide. Similarly, for the LEV 1 tech group, the orange lines show the updated speed correction factors for EMFAC 2025, and the green lines representing those from EMFAC 2021. Next slide. For LEV 2 and LEV 3 vehicles, the trend lines of the updated data for EMFAC 2025 are shown here and compared to EMFAC 2021. This update for EMFAC 2025 also includes the high-speed test data from 7 vehicles, shown here for the speeds above 70 miles per hour. Next slide. When implementing the updated light-duty speed correction factors into the model, the resulting statewide emissions impact are shown here for NOx, ROG, and CO. The charts show emissions in tons per day by calendar year, where the orange lines for EMFAC 2025 are above the green lines for EMFAC 2021. These results are only for speed correction factors below 65 miles per hour and does not include the high-speed test data. In this example, we can note the percent change in calendar year 2030 to be about 12% for NOx, about 5.9% for ROG, and about 28% for CO. It is noted that the decreasing trends into future calendar years are due to the ACC2 program, Advanced Clean Cars 2 program, reflecting the population increase in the electric vehicle fleet. This concludes my presentation. The next presenter will be Vahid to talk about overall updates.
Thanks, Ivan. Hi, everyone. My name is Vahid Farhani, and I'll present how the updates that Jinya covered earlier impact the key trends in our latest version of EMFAC and how it compares to EMFAC 2021. For now, I'll focus on the big picture trends and changes, both for light duty and heavy duty vehicles. I'll cover the detailed trends after that. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thanks. So starting with light duty vehicles, as a reminder, that's anything with a gross vehicle weight rating of 85,500 or less. A few updates have led to decreases in emissions compared to EMFAC 2021. First up, the updated VMT forecast module projects people driving a bit less, which translates to fewer emissions overall. Then we have the Advanced Clean Cars 2 program, which increases the number of zero emission vehicles, which helps bring emissions down across the board, except for tire wear, which is a unique case since zero emission vehicles tend to be heavier and weight plays a huge factor on tire wear emissions. We're actually seeing a slight increase in tire wear emissions for zero emission vehicles, which has been reflected in EMFAC 2025 as well. On the other side, the speed correction factors and more high-speed driving are contributing to higher NOx, ROG, and CO emissions. Same goes for classic vehicles, or in other words, those that are 45 years old or older. They've added to the ROG and NOx emissions in our inventory. On the flip side, the updated base emission rates led to decreases in ROG and NOx. Lastly, the new federal greenhouse gas standards are helping to bring CO2 down. And the original light-duty vehicle forecasting update, that's more of a mixed bag. The impact depends on the region, but it is pretty neutral when you look at the state as a whole. Next slide, please. Now for heavy-duty vehicles, those are over 8,500 pounds. The VMT forecast didn't shift much for heavy duty, so the overall travel stayed pretty consistent. Regulations like the Advanced Clean Fleets Rule, which aims for 100% zero emission sales by 2036, as Jinyak mentioned, and the heavy-duty Phase 3 greenhouse gas rule have been incorporated in the new EMFAC inventory, which are driving emissions down across the board, except, again, for tire wear. Same goes for Clean Truck Check and Clean Trucks Plan. These two programs are helping with decreasing NOx and exhaust PM emissions. We also updated speed correction factors using real-world data from PEMS, and that change actually increased NOx emissions a bit. Finally, we've made adjustment on allocation of vehicles activity based on new telematics data. As you expect, this doesn't change emissions much on a statewide level, but on the regional level, the emissions have gone up and down depending on the region. Next slide, please. Now that we have the overall picture, let's see how the trend changed throughout the 2010 and 2015 period. I'll cover the population and VMT trends, and my colleague Sonika will cover the emissions. Next slide, please. First, we have the vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, on the statewide level. The figure on the left shows the VMT trend for light-duty vehicles. The green dashed line shows the trend for the previous version of EMFAC 2021, and the yellow line shows the trend for our new EMFAC inventory, EMFAC 2025. As you can see from the figure, the light-duty VMT has decreased in the new version. The forecast of VMT is projected to be lower due to lower projected growth in human population, as well as other primarily economic factors. But wait, there's a decrease in historical years. That's because of the incorporation of the high-speed driving data, which Geniak touched on earlier. Since we added the high-speed driving data and the vehicles are less efficient in high-speed brackets, meaning they consume more fuel, we lowered the historical VMT so that the resulting fuel consumption values match with the historical fuel consumption data. The figure on the right shows the VMT trend for medium and heavy-duty vehicles. The difference is minor between the two versions, and that small difference is due to the fact that we expect the VMT to be lower due to updates in our historical and base year data. But the VMT growth factors remain the same. Next slide, please. Next, we have the statewide population trends. As shown in the left figure, we anticipate the light-duty population to be lower compared to our previous projections due to our updated forecast module, which projects fewer new sales. As you see on the right side, heavy-duty population have some slight differences, but stay pretty much the same. Next slide, please. This figure shows our updated projections for light-duty new vehicle sales. As I mentioned previously, we project lower new light-duty vehicle sales compared to EMFAC 2021 due to lower projection for population as well as other variables, including economic factors. Next slide, please. This slide shows the vehicle's fuel mix in the EMFAC 2025 inventory. We use those registration databases like DMV to obtain the vehicle's fuel data for our historical years, and we model the impact of regulations on the fuel mix for future years. We project a significant growth in number of zero emissions light-duty vehicles due to implementation of Advanced Clean Cars 2 program. We project somewhat similar trend for zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles, although the increase in electric vehicles is not as pronounced as light-duty vehicles. Implementation of ACF, ACT, and Phase 2 will drive significant growth in number of zero-emission trucks in the next couple of decades. That's it for me. I'll hand it over to Sanika to cover the emissions. Thanks.
Thank you, Wahid. Good afternoon. My name is Sanika Nishandar, and I'll be presenting the overall emissions updates for EMFAC 2025 in comparison with EMFAC 2021. Slide. This plot illustrates statewide NOx emissions in tons per day from 2010 to 2050. For this slide and upcoming few slides, the yellow solid line represents EMFAC 2025, while the green dashed line represents EMFAC 2021. Both models, EMFAC 2021 and 2025, show a consistent decline in statewide NOx emissions across the timeline. However, EMFAC 2025 projects slightly higher NOx emissions than EMFAC 2021 through calendar year 2025, followed by lower emissions from 2025 to 2050. Next slide, please. Both light-duty and medium and heavy-duty vehicles categories exhibit a downward trend in NOx emissions in EMFAC 2021 and EMFAC 2025. The observed increase in light-duty NOx emissions in EMFAC 2025 before the calendar year 2025 is due to updated speed correction factors and inclusion of age 45 plus vehicles. The post-2025 decrease in light-duty NOx emissions reflects the impact of the Advanced Clean Car 2 regulations. A minor increase in medium and heavy-duty NOx emissions can be attributed to slower fleet turnover prior to full implementation of final truck and bus regulations. The decline of NOx emissions after calendar year 2025 in EMFAC 2025 is driven by the integration of multiple regulations, including the Clean Truck Check, the Federal Clean Truck Plan, Phase 3, ACT, and SEF. Next slide. The plot in this slide presents statewide exhaust PM 2.5 emissions from 2010 to 2050. Starting calendar year 2022, EMFAC 2025 projects lower PM 2.5 emissions compared to EMFAC 2021, which I'll further explore in the next slides. Higher light-duty PM 2.5 emissions in EMFAC 2025 before calendar year 2025 stems from the updated high-speed driving 45 plus fleet and the speed correction factor updates. A notable decline in these emissions post-2025 is driven from the ACC2 regulations. As for the NOx, as with the NOx, the slight increase in medium and heavy-duty PM2.5 emissions is linked to delayed turnover ahead of the vehicle requirements. EMFAC 2025 projects lower PM2.5 emissions beyond 2025 due to the influence of regulations mentioned in the previous slides. Slide shows the total statewide PM2.5 emissions from 2010 to 2050. A clear downward trend is evident with EMFAC 2025, projecting lower total PM2.5 emissions than 2021 beyond calendar year 2020. Reduced light-duty PM2.5 emissions in EMFAC 2025 result from the lower exhaust and brake-wear emissions due to ACC2 regulations. Similarly, the lower medium and heavy-duty PM2.5 emissions can be attributed to regulatory actions outlined in the text box here. Next slide. The graph here shows statewide reactive organic gas or ROG emissions from 2010 to 2050. Both models reflect a steady decline in ROG emissions starting 2010. EMFAC 2025, however, shows higher ROG emissions than 2021 from calendar year 2010 to around 2040, with lower projections thereafter. Slide. Elevated ROG emissions in EMFAC 2025 in the light-duty module through calendar year 2037 are due to the updates involving the age 45 plus fleet, speed correction factors, and high-speed driving estimates. The future decline is driven by implementation of ACC2 regulations. The medium and heavy-duty module shows overall lower emissions in EMFAC 2025 thanks to ACT, ACF, and Phase 3 regulations. Next slide. This slide presents statewide CO2 emissions from 2010 to 2050. EMFAC 2025 projects lower CO2 emissions than EMFAC 2021, reflecting the impact of ACC2, ACT, ACF, and Phase 3 regulations. Slide. The plot on this slide shows CO2 emissions for light-duty vehicles and medium and heavy-duty vehicles on the right across the state. Next slide. The graph on this slide shows the statewide ammonia emissions. Similar to the ongoing trends, ammonia emissions are lower in EMFAC 2025 due to lower VMT forecasted and implementation of the regulations mentioned in all the previous slides. Next slide, please. These plots break down the ammonia emissions for both light-duty and medium and heavy-duty vehicles on left and right, respectively. Next slide. So the plot on this slide illustrates statewide SOx emissions from 2010 to 2050. In addition to lower VMTs in EMFAC 2025 model, the lower SOx emissions can be attributed to the updates informed by a recent CARB study, which found lower sulfur content in fuels collected statewide than previously estimated in EMFAC 2021. The updated sulfur from 15 ppm for both gasoline and diesel is 6.5 ppm for gasoline and 5.2 ppm for diesel in EMFAC 2025. Next slide. The plots here show statewide SOx emissions for light-duty vehicles on the left and the medium and heavy-duty vehicles on the right. This wraps up the overview of EMFAC 2025 emissions, and I'll now hand it over to my colleague Jinyok for next steps.
Thank you, Sanika. So let me briefly share our next steps. Next slide. This slide illustrates the timeline from today moving forward. Today marks the conclusion of our fourth and final workshop. In May, likely before mid-May, we plan to release the final version of EMFAC 2025. However, there is a slight chance that the timing may be influenced by additional feedback we are receiving from the release candidate testing. By the summer, we'll finalize the technical documentation for EMFAC 2025, which will provide a detailed account of all the updates and enhancements we made in EMFAC 2025. At that point, we'll submit EMFAC 2025 to the federal US EPA for their approval, officially concluding the development phase of EMFAC 2025. Then in the winter of this year, we'll embark on the next chapter of EMFAC development with the code name of EMFAC 2020Z. This new development will span approximately 4 years, with a tentative release scheduled for the summer of 2029. Next slide. That concludes our prepared content for today. We'll now open the floor for question and answers. Next slide. So we are happy to answer any questions regarding the updates and outcomes of EMFAC 2025. If you have a question, please use Zoom's raise hand feature to express your intent to speak. For those joining us by phone, you can press #2 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute yourself as needed. As a reminder, you're also welcome to email your questions to mpac@arb.ca.gov at any time, especially if you don't get a chance to ask during today's Q&A session. When asking a question, please provide your name and affiliation. Additionally, please specify the relevant slide number if possible, and we'll be able to respond more effectively. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can start taking verbal questions. Rajinder, you raised your hand first. Let's if you okay. I think you have the ability to unmute yourself. Okay, and please state your name and affiliation. Thanks.
My name is Rajinder Datt. I'm from Satlantis, Auburn Hills here in Detroit. And I joined the presentation just a few minutes late. And the two lines were showing on those graphs, the yellow and the green. One was mentioning 21 and 25. Is this those lines represent the emissions in 2021 fleet volumes and 2025 fleet volumes, or just simulating the vehicles, 25 model year vehicles and 21, or something else that I did not understand?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rajinder. So these are comparing two different versions of our model. We update EMFAC every 3 to 4 years. So the current version of the model is EMFAC 2021, but then we will soon be releasing the next version of the model, which is called EMFAC 2025. And the years on the names correspond to the years in which those models were released. And in our model, we have historical data up to a base year. And so historical data was used up to year 2019 in EMFAC 2021. And then with this model update in EMFAC 2025, the historical data goes up to 2022, and then everything else is forecasted. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you did. And just one follow-up. The speed correction factors, how do you apply those?
Yeah, I can start and then others can chime in. So the speed correction factors are, well, in EMFAC, we have an emission rate, a base emission rate at some speed, and then we use the speed correction factors to model how different types of operation, like driving on the freeway or doing driving in stop and go traffic, impacts the emissions rates. So that's the primary function of the speed correction factor. And Stephen or others can please chime in if you have anything else to add.
So does it mean you adjust the emissions based on the speed of the vehicle, how they were driven, and adjust and normalize them?
Yes, you're correct. They are normalized to a reference speed. And so the trend lines you see are ratios.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think we can take one more verbal question and then we can switch over to the chat. And then we'll go back to the verbal questions. Alex,
Oh,
think
yeah.
you
Can you
should-
hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Great, thank you. My name is Alex Marcucciana with Trinity Consultants. I serve in the air quality coordination role for the San Joaquin Valley MPOs. So I don't have any questions on the workshop, but if you don't mind, I'd like to share a few comments based on our latest EMFAC testing that we just concluded. On behalf of the 8 Valley MPOs, we would like to thank CARB staff for the opportunity to test the EMFAC 2025 model prior to this workshop. I want to let you know that our latest testing results show that the gap between ROG emissions modeled with EMFAC25 for the San Joaquin Valley region and the existing ROG SIP budgets only widened when compared to the last EMFAC22I beta version. The emission increases observed with the latest model are nearly 60% higher, even for our smallest MPOs like Kings and Tulare, when compared to EMFAC21, and are due to the latest assumptions and methodology updates that went into EMFAC25 as discussed during today's workshop. As we stated in our formal comment letter, our 8 Valley MPOs will not be able to demonstrate conformity to 2008 and 22 ozone SIB budgets should EMFAC25 become required for regional conformity analysis with EPA approval, which we would expect to occur sometime in 2028. We appreciate your response to our comment letter that we just received on Monday and would like to thank CARB to your commitment to begin coordinating with our MPOs to determine actions we can pursue to successfully deliver transportation projects in the Valley. We want to stress the importance of transportation conformity when it comes to receiving federal funds for critical transportation infrastructure and transit projects. While we understand that CARB plans to submit this model version for EPA review as soon as this summer, we would like to request that the first meeting with CARB, San Joaquin Valley, and any other California MPOs who are impacted by these changes to the EMFAC model occurs as soon as possible so that we can provide assurance to a region that we have a plan and a timeline to resolve emission increases caused by EMFAC 25. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. I just want to say that we really appreciate your comment and thank you for your feedback. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that we understand that these updates can pose challenges for demonstrating conformity on the MPO side. And I just want to highlight that CARB has a history of working with MPOs in the past to resolve these issues. And we are more than happy to start discussing solutions that we can both bring to the table and are happy to do that as soon as possible.
Yeah, that would be great. Feel free to reach out to me and I can also help coordinate that meeting. And we were happy to share kind of our test results and everything else with you and look at the processes, evaporative versus exhaust, and anything that we can do on the MPO side. So definitely happy to have that dialogue. So just would like to encourage you to reach out to us as soon as possible.
Great. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can go to some of the written questions. We can answer a few live. Normally, how long will US EPA review and approve the submitted EMFAC 2025 model? And the timeline is variable, but in our experience, it takes somewhere from 12 to 18 months. So I think that's kind of the timeline we're expecting, but there is some uncertainty about it as well. Okay, there's a question from Tom Coquette. Are speed correction factors above 65 miles per hour included in EMFAC 2025? And I will let someone from our light duty team answer.
Let me see the question.
So are speed correction factors above 65 miles per hour included in EMFAC 2025?
Yes, it is included. This time we have gone up to high-speed driving, so we have taken it. And Tom, we have a presentation we have done in October of last year. It details that. We can send you that presentation.
Okay. Megan Beardsley, so speed correction factors on slides 21 to 23. If we can scroll to those slides. Oh, I think we lost the slides.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, this may be the same question that Tom really asked. When for the speed correction factors, it looks like you don't have data on the very highest speeds for the oldest vehicles. Is that the reason that the speed correction's flatten out there, or is there some other reason?
Kind of answer this. So for the speed correction factors, the high speed test plan or the high speed updates were made only for Lev 2 and Lev 3 technology groups, so newer vehicles. Whereas for like the older technology groups, which is pre-Lev and Lev, we have constant speed correction factors beyond 65.
Thanks.
Okay. And I'm just gonna quickly read through some of the questions that we answered in the chat. There's a few about slides, and I think they have been addressed. So there's a question from an anonymous attendee, and if you can, it would be great if you could also state your name and affiliation somewhere in the Q&A box. That'd be very much appreciated. So the question is, can you elaborate on what are the heavy duty regulations with waiver request withdrawals, and how are or are not incorporated in EMFAC 2025? And the one regulation that was impacted by the waiver request withdrawal that happened earlier this year is Advanced Clean Fleets. Specifically, we're not able to enforce the high priority and drayage fleet requirements, so we are not reflecting those emissions reductions in the model, but we are still retaining the state and local government fleet requirements, which do not require a waiver to enforce. So I hope that answers your question, but please feel free to raise your hand if you have any follow-up on that. Oh, okay. And then the next question, slide 27 and slide 36 for the light duty plot. Will CARB provide the degree of change from different factors to impact the final emission prediction compared with EMFAC 2021 in their EMFAC 2025 tech report? For example, both speed correction factors, high-speed driving, and 45+ age vehicles will increase NOx per slide 27. Which one is the dominant factor? And Satya, do you want to elaborate on your answer that you typed in?
Yeah, the most dominant is about 45+ age vehicles, and then it is the high-speed driving, and the least is the speed correction factor for the light duty. And yes, we are going to talk about it in the tech documentation, detailed methodology, as well as the impacts, the total impacts. I mean.
Okay, there's another question in the chat. How much deviation did you get adding greater than 65-mile-per-hour speed bins and speed correction factors that affect ROG and NOx from 2021 to 2025 version? Did the telematics data affect the ROG and NOx? I can answer a little bit about the telematics data. So we used vehicle telematics data to reallocate where trucks are operating, or where we're assuming trucks are operating in California before they were based off of old survey origin destination data that's over 15 years old. So this was kind of a fresh view of that. And overall, the emissions impact was neutral. Since it affects heavy duty, ROG's not really impacted, but NOx did increase in some areas, but it decreased in others. So the impact is very region specific. And then does someone want to weigh in on the high speed driving impacts?
Lucas, do you have the number?
I would have to pull up the slide. If you can give me a few minutes, I can do that.
We can do that on the chat.
Yeah, we can circle back on the chat. Then Megan, slide 11 talks about including new test data. Was this presented at a prior workshop? Maybe we can go back to slide 11. Yeah, so these were covered in previous workshops, and it's kind of over a variety of them at different times. So like the class 7 and 8 vehicle test results, I think were presented in some of our first two workshops, especially the chassis dynamometer and PEMS updates. Class 4 through 6 test results were presented at our workshop in January, and then the high-speed test results were presented back in October. So I will post the link to all of our workshops in the slides so you can take a look at them. Looks like Andrew has hand up. I think you should be able to unmute. It sounded like you unmuted for 1 second and then you muted again. Maybe try unmuting.
Hey, Sarah, sorry, I think I raised my hand on accident.
Oh, okay, that's completely fine. Thanks for letting us know. Okay. Any other questions? And I think we're still, we still need to answer the deviation from adding 65 plus mile per hour speed bins and speed correction factors. I will just say briefly that this had a big impact on the ROG and NOx and increased the emissions from those pollutants substantially.
And this is David Quiros. I can add to what Sarah said just generally. The impacts on the emissions of the high-speed driving are going to depend on the VMT distribution by speed bin that each of the MPOs will put into the model. What we're showing today is what we call the default version. And this is used for CARB regulations, but for SIP work, state implementation plan work, or transportation conformity work, there's a version of the model, and many of you are aware of this, called scenario generation mode, where the VMT distributions from each of the MPOs gets put in. And depending on the distribution of VMT at different speeds by region of the state, the impacts will be different. And so when you want to talk about the impact of high-speed driving, most of the MPO speed distributions don't go above 70 miles per hour. In that case, the impact of high-speed driving is going to be limited to any changes that are between 65 and 70 miles an hour, to the extent that you want to consider high speed anything above 65 as we have outlined it today. But overall, if you just want to look at the default VMT distributions that we have acquired from telematics data, it was a reasonably significant driver both for NOx and ROG. There were other changes that we've made and talked about over the last few years that have also contributed to those changes or increases in NOx and ROG. So I hope that that's helpful. So it really depends on what the distribution of a VMT is in each of the MPOs across the state.
We also did thanks, David. We also did a back of the envelope calculation, very approximate, and for calendar year 2030, for SIP and transportation conformity purpose, the ROG increased around 12% and NOx around 2.5%. But that's a very, very back of the envelope. This is not like a final number.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, but as always, please feel free to reach out to us at emfac@arb.ca.gov, which is on our slides. All right, have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.